5 minutes here. We'll read our text, 1 John chapter 4, verse 18. There's no fear in love, but perfect love casts out fear, because fear hath torment. He that feareth is not made perfect in love. You can be seated. You know, that always jumped out at me. Fear hath torment. And it really does. It will torment you to death.
Yes, it does. Amen.
It will torment you to destruction. There are a few types of fear, and the fear that I'm not talking about is, all the phobias that we have. You might be scared of a spider, or like my wife, she turns into a statue when she sees a snake. You may even have the fear of heights or whatever. I'm not talking about those. Those are kind of healthy to have those fears. Keeps you out of trouble. The fear I'm talking about tonight is the spirit of fear, which I think involves a lot of things too. It involves the fear of man. It involves the fear of the devil. We should never fear the devil. It involves the fear of your situation. And that could be anything. Life throws situations at us that we don't expect sometimes, and they could be devastating. There are a few people in here who have experienced those things. But we shouldn't fear those things either. Because trusting in God is where the relief comes. And I want to show you something here. The Bible has a lot to say about fear. And one thing it says, and I like this, God has not given us the spirit of fear, but instead He's given us the spirit of power, love, and a sound mind. And I've thought about this a lot, because I pray, a lot of times I'll pray for my own personal needs, and one of those needs is, Lord, I don't want to fear anything. And that's a tall order, because there's a lot of things that can come your way. But what He showed me is that if you don't want to fear anything, be in my will. Be in my will. Because the fear of the world, the fear without being in God's will, if you're not in God's will, you're on your own, you're doing your own thing, and you are responsible for whenever you mess up. You dug that hole, and you have to fear it. But if you're living in God's will, and trouble comes your way, He's got your back. Yeah, I think about, they did a story in the children's church for Christmas. And Mary was called of God to give birth to the Messiah through the miraculous Holy Ghost power. The Holy Ghost overshadowed her. We know the story. But He did not even make room for her in the end when they got to where they had to go to get taxed. Jerusalem, Bethlehem area. There was no, they were full up. And I thought about that. I was like, man, that's really something. Here's this lady fixing to have a baby, and God did not make any provisions. But yes, He did. See, we look at things through a carnal eye sometimes, not knowing that God's will is actually pretty hard sometimes. And what the Lord spoke to me about this is that, and I've experienced this. You know those times when you get in with God and He's just moving on you. You might have been reading the Word. You might be preparing for a study, and He just falls on you, and you can't even do anything but just worship and get down in a little ball and love the Lord. It's times like that when there is not one iota of fear in me. You could bring anything my way, and when I'm in that presence with God, there's nothing. You could do anything you want to me, and it would not scare me. I would not have fear. Because why? Because I'm in the presence of God. And I want to tell you something. Living in fear will destroy you. It will torture you. I know this from my own experience. My wife tells me I worry too much. That's fear. Why do I worry? Because I'm trying to set something up on my own, and it may just not be the will of God. So I worry about it. That's just a human nature that we have to battle with, and that's why we have to read, we have to pray, we have to seek His face, we have to hear the prayer or the preaching, and we have to be in His will. We need to hear His voice. We need to know His voice is speaking to us, and when we hear that and we know that, just like those times we get in His presence, we're going to know we have nothing to fear. Nothing. No matter what the doctor says, no matter what the bill collectors say, if you're in His will, you're okay, you're protected. And that's what I wanted to bring you tonight and just encourage you. Don't live in fear like that. It'll destroy your walk with God. It'll shut down your faith. It'll make you miserable. So be blessed tonight and seek the Lord. Break out of that fear. Break out of that fear. The carnal mind reeks with fear. And so let's have a spiritual mind and be in God's will. God bless you tonight.